All right. So the last speaker of the conference is another great and good friend of ours who's been absent for a few years because he keeps having these daughters graduate. And these graduations seem to take, excuse me, the same days that this conference runs. But anyways, he's back among us. It's Terry Mosher. He goes by the name of Aislinn, and he has agreed to give us a review of the year and a review of this conference.
Moses, come here. So I think this guy deserves a little bit of applause.
I love that
I've got one fast question for you.
For me?
Yeah, the other day you were sitting over here and you sat down and you were sort of, it was like you're just thinking out loud.
Yeah.
You said something about a moment in time, a historical moment that changed everything, and sex would be involved.
I said that?
Yeah. I guess you were thinking of it. Anyway, I thought you had some sort of contest set up or something. So I've got an entry.
Okay.
You want to see it?
Yeah.
So it's the baguettes, right? Read it down there.
God said. It's straight out of
the 5
books.
Thing.
Yeah, my
but
books.
You got to get down to the bottom. Joseph, and then God said, stop fucking around. There you go. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to sit over here to stay out of the way of the funny pictures. There's a bit of coordination here because I've got to click, and anyway, I won't bore you with that. It really has turned into a family here at Idea City. Upon arriving here, the first person I always look for would be, there we go, Jamie Matthews, of course. He's never hard to miss, you know. Jamie really is at the heart of Idea City. He's always here. I think Moses should turn him into a mascot. Perfect. Not only is Jamie always the most colorful person in the room, he's also probably the smartest. So if you don't know Jamie already, please introduce yourself. He's very gregarious. There's no need to kiss his rings, though. There's so much to be learned about what goes on in the universe during your 3 days here. One mystery was cleared up beautifully for me during this last session. Here we go. Sorry. I mean, what did, you know, back in the day, what did happen to John Lennon's, God damn, sorry. I'll get better at this. That John Lennon tooth. So, perhaps you still have this album too. The most surprising presentation for me, well, the first thing yesterday morning, having just finished our coffee, my wife and I wandered into the hall about 9:30 to hear the first speaker, who turned out to be this horny rabbi. You know? Boy, times have changed when you think about it. I mean, in any case, this religious figure was going on about how married couples should be talking dirty to each other by sharing the deepest sexual fantasies. Well, I was sitting there with my wife, and I turned to her and I said, well, what do you think? I think she misunderstood. She kind of sighed and said, well, okay, but could I have another coffee first? You know? Getting serious for a moment, this was my favorite presentation, I think the one I was happiest to see here. And there's a serious side to cartooning. We go after particular people. All people kind of make mistakes. Here's the thing, though. For years, Kotler was an important political and federal cabinet minister in Montreal. And I've been a political cartoonist in Montreal for years. So you'd think I'd have scads of sketches, you know, poking a little bit of fun at Irwin. I don't. I've never drawn the guy. And the reason for that is I've never been able to find any fault with him. You know, the guy is just terrific. If only we could fill Parliament with a whole bunch of Irwin Cotlers. Let me add, instead of these Harperite assholes, we could get back to being the kind of decent country I think we should be. Now, I will mention several other favorite people I saw over the last 3 days through my talk. But now, for now, since I was last at Idea City 5 years ago, I've been very busy. But my bread and butter is still drawing cartoons for the Gazette, Montreal's only English language newspaper. The Anglos form a peculiar community, a very interesting one in Canada. Out of necessity, is now the most bilingual group of people in North America. It's also an extremely aware community politically, so it has been a pleasure to illustrate their pleasures, frustrations, and concerns for some 47 years. Montreal remains Canada's most interesting city by far because of all of these factors. I encourage you to visit us, but I just don't want you to drive. You can't get there from here. We have endless ongoing street construction and repairs. Because of highly questionable construction methods and cost years ago, our infrastructure is crumbling a lot sooner than yours is. Your turn is coming, though. Furthermore, corruption has been rampant in Quebec for years. Here is our Montreal City Hall wrapped in crime tape. If you did have to visit Montreal, you'd never have to deal with this guy again because he resigned. This is our former mayor, Gérald Tremblay. I was really quite amazed when the Gazette printed this cartoon. I mean, the mayor with a strap on. It was just, anyway, but I think they understood the frustrations of people in Montreal, and so they went with it, and it became a very popular cartoon. Now, we have an antidote in Montreal, and it's hockey. You know, we're crazy about hockey. Everybody in Canada is hockey, but particularly so, I think, in Montreal. How are we doing there? In fact, here's a view of Google Earth during the NHL hockey playoffs. Best of all for me, though, are the politics in Quebec. I mean, it's just astonishing, the stuff that goes on there. And, you know, I've had one of the easiest jobs in Canada dealing with this stuff. I mean, it just goes on and commenting on all the matters that happen to Quebecers. It's just so easy. Let me give you an example of this, my favorite example of the last year or so. Do you remember when Miley Cyrus released that video of herself on the wrecking ball? Well, I'm looking at this on YouTube or television or something, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, if I just add some love handles, 20, 30 pounds, I could very well be then Premier Pauline Marois. I'm the only Anglophone in Montreal who's going to miss that woman, you know? In any case, this will be the cover of my next book. Is it okay to promote a book? Wrecking Ball, nice introduction by Chantal Hébert, that's coming out in October. I'm sorry, but none of these cartoons will make any sense to Americans. We have a lot of, show me hands, how many Americans do we have here? Yeah, a fair number. Well, these are sort of Canadian concerned cartoons. You know, we have this curious relationship with the United States. Yeah, I mean, we support the Americans militarily when it seems justified, right? But there's a feeling here that Americans either take us for granted or take no notice of us at all. This is a recent cartoon from The New Yorker. A wonderful thing. A couple of guys at a party in New York City, contemporary people, and one guy is saying to the other, what part of Canada that I know nothing about are you from? Americans seem to think that if you take any one of their U.S. interstate highways north far enough, eventually you'll come up to an interstate that will get you into Canada. We can live with this, though, because Canadians are good at laughing at ourselves. We're probably the best people, some of the best people in the world at laughing at ourselves when you think about it. I mean, we're home to, in Montreal, the fantastic Just for Laughs Festival. I mean, it's a wonderful thing. Largest comedy festival in the world. Each summer, in both French and English, the event attracts thousands of participants with millions of spectators having attended over the years. And why not, you know, because God knows there's plenty to laugh at in the world. And look at the world-famous comedians that Canada has produced. Whoops, wrong one, there we go. Look at that. I mean, I'm not sure how Stephen Harper got in there, but nevertheless, you go. However, political cartooning has been the most consistent form of public humor in Canada since the country was first founded in 1867. In most of our major daily newspapers, and more recently online, cartoonists have churned out millions of satirical drawings over the years, poking fun at all aspects of Canadian government and social life. It's a populist record of attitudes. And I really want to mine that down the road and sort of put things out, get stuff into high schools and all sorts of things. We had an exhibition in Montreal, and this is the, hold on. Whoop, wrong one, there we go. This is the book cover and the catalog cover and so on, with the signatures of every sort of working political cartoonist in Canada. I'd look at the variety of styles of signatures, and you get exactly the same thing with the actual work. Now, I've been, it was decided, I'm sort of an elder guy with the cartoonist. I had been the president, passed it on to another guy who I'm going to introduce you to in a few minutes. But it was decided that maybe I should sort of turn into a kind of Johnny Appleseed and start to wander around the world and start to spread the world about Canadian cartooning, because we have tremendous quality here. So I started doing that. Here I'm in Turkey. In 2010, a big Asian affair with all kinds of Asian cartoons. They made me the president, but only because I was the oldest guy there. You know, here again in Portugal, at the time, one of the largest cartoon events of its kind in the world, judging, and again, a lot of curiosity expressed about Canadian cartooning. But the most interesting one was 2 years ago. I went to China, and my God, they go crazy for these things. This was a huge animation event where people of all, for youth primarily, encouraging stuff, but with animation and this, that, and the other. They invited 45 cartoonists from around the world, top-notch people, to come in and talk about this, that, and the other. It was very exciting. So I naively got a little bit excited about this. Here we go. I mean, hundreds of students showed up at this event, and all of them draw beautifully, you know, and all of them want to come to Canada, and all of them want my job. But the organizers were very enthusiastic, and I had no sense of China. I got a little bit later, but they said, "Why don't you come back next year and come in and give a presentation of Canada explained by your cartoonists?" I said, "You're sure?" You know. Anyway, they said, "Yeah, why don't you do that?" So I spent a year preparing the presentation, but I needed some serious advice, and it came in this form. Above is the Chinese character for big. The second character is for mountain. You know where I'm going with this, don't you? So, Big Mountain, or as you know him as, Da Shan, right? So we exchanged internets for emails for months, and he would explain the subtleties of me, like They don't understand what a garbage bag is, if I had it in a cartoon, because, I mean, all of this fascinating stuff. And as you know, Mark has used his extraordinary talents to build bridges of understanding between our two countries. But it didn't work this time. After the Chinese cartoon authorities got a little nervous, and they said, could you send us a few examples of what it is you're going to be doing? And so they got an advanced look at, for example, how Serge Chapelot was drawing Jean Charest in Quebec, and another good example of how he dealt with former Prime Minister. And, suddenly the Chinese were expressing a sort of concern about this, and then they said, we've run out of money, you can't come. So lessons to be learned there, but here's the curious thing that happened. There's this sort of network internationally, and the Australians heard about it. Now, the Australians, I must explain to you, have the oldest cartoon association in the world. It's fascinating. They have 300 members. They're set up. They have award systems and that sort of thing. They're the best at it in the world, and they produce tremendously strong cartoonists. So they're curious about us. So, in effect, like everybody else, it seems, at Idea City, I went to Australia. And we spoke at groups of cartoonists in Sydney, and again in Melbourne. They all showed up. We gave away a prize of a bottle of maple leaf syrup there. And just, everywhere I turned in Australia, there were these cartoonists. One guy was an animator for District 9, another guy, young guy, this was in Tasmania. We traveled all around and talked to these cartoonists. What we're setting up, it's very exciting, is within 2 years there's going to be a major exchange of political cartoonists from Australia explaining Australia coming to Canada, and we're going to do the same thing there, quite possibly at the comedy festivals. So it's very exciting. All right, here we go. Then, just a few weeks ago, we returned from Cuba. We were down there, a whole bunch of us, and we mixed it up with the Cuban cartoonists, and they were very, very generous with their time. So about 15 Canadian cartoonists mixing that. It was great. It was fun. And, there's no secret that it's very difficult for Cuban. They drew wonderful cartoons on life and that sort of thing, but they're allowed, like in China, to draw authority figures. But this is the cartoon they loved most of all that I showed as a Canadian cartoon. I explained to the audience that in Canada, if a major crime happens, we kind of insist that the police fingerprint themselves first. So that was just great. So cartoonists really come in all shapes and sizes. We get together here and there. They get along extremely well. We're famous, but we're not rich, so we often share a hotel room. But that's okay, quite gregarious. This is Sue Doer. I thought you'd probably kind of like this. The woman in there is Sue Doer, who draws for the Toronto Sun. She's kind of our dead mother. But you'll love this. She works for the Sun chain, and so she's got this pet iguana she calls PK, You figured that out? Pierre Carl Pelodeau. Anyway, she's drawn endless cartoons over the years, and here's a beautiful one that she did when there was the discussion about women going topless. Right? Or again, serious size, global warming. I love this one too, when the ice is melting. This is a bunch of cartoonists. So you can see what I'm getting at here. This is drawn by Anita Kuntz. Anita, stand up. Where are you? She won the Evita package. There she is. She's one of Canada's great illustrators, and then wonderful self-portrait there. And then here's another fellow, Wes Tyrell. He does the cartoon in the back of Zoomer magazine on Moses, But he also does some other great stuff. For example, here's your recent election with the World Cup. And I love this one Well, there's the Moses stuff. Fun, eh? But I love this one. I mean, it's a motel with all of the political figures. You know, Pauline Marois with her own separate area there. The Ford brothers and the three senators. And it's beautiful stuff. And Harper playing with his hockey stick. Anyway, this is Theo Modakis, of course, who's had a great time with Rob Ford here in Toronto. This is Brian Gable, who did a very similar thing with what the singers did before. The Russian bear, the British lion, the Chinese dragon, the bird of prey, the United States, and we're, of course, a beaver drinking a beer, waving a flag, but not a very big flag. So we've used the beaver, you know, throughout. Maybe the guys could use this for display purposes, drawn by Bruce McKinnon. I'll rush through these, Moses, because I want to get to the last thing. Anyway, I'm going to rush through. There's some tremendous cartoons. This guy I like very much because he's tough, and he draws what happens with the Harper conservatives in Ottawa giving us the finger, but at the same time he understands the humanity of Canadians. You know that we apologize a lot, and we're very good at the Olympics, so he's drawn two winners apologizing. Malcolm Mays, how the public expressed their opinions. Same thing in Quebec City. That's by André Philippe Côté. This is the moods of Stephen Harper. Stephen Harper and Mike Duffy. Drawn by... You like that, right? Okay. And the best of all, Justin Bieber. And Dan Murphy is a genius on the West Coast here. He's been drawing for years. He drew cartoons for and I'm coming up to the end here. He drew wonderful cartoons as editorial cartoons for the Vancouver province, but he quit and took the buyout, and now he just does stuff that he likes to do. Actually, he did a wonderful book a while back during the height of the women's movement. But I got to tell you, Dan now does, this is the last thing, Dan now does, he grabs video clips off and applies his cartoon mentality to this. And he'll grab a simple video clip here and one there and put it together. And this is the funniest thing I've seen in a year and a half. Watch this. This is a video put together. Do we have sound on this? I think so, huh? Okay, anyway, here we go. Hey, Okay, so yeah. Anyway, that's where we're kind of going. We're starting to go to video stuff. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Hey, how are you?
It's great.
Yeah? Okay.
The undue exploitation of humor.
Yeah, that's right. Good. Hi.
It's great.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.